This is the IBJ podcast for the week of Monday, March 10th, 2025, brought to you by Taft. I'm your host, Mason King. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Scott Lingle grew up in Indianapolis with parents who were always looking for ways to bring in extra money and eliminate debt. Their entrepreneurial pursuits included flipping more than a dozen homes and rehabilitating a host of other products for resale. Scott Lingle knew early on that he wanted to be in sales. After a distinguished career in the insurance industry, he took a big entrepreneurial leap. In 2015, he co-founded Remodel Health, which after initial growing pains became one of the fastest growing firms in Indianapolis throughout the early 2020s. It was ranked 13th on IBJ's list in 2024, with a 123% increase in annual revenue between 2021 and 2023, topping out at nearly $15 million. Lingle stepped down as CEO several years ago, but stayed on board as board chairman while pursuing other interests and investing opportunities. Among his projects, he co-founded High School Hustle, an initiative to encourage Indianapolis students to start and grow businesses with the guidance of mentors who have done the same. It's now in its second year and available at nearly 20 high schools. And there's a secondary goal that could be of benefit for the Indianapolis startup community: creating networks of well-established entrepreneurs who fund the students' work and the younger business leaders who coach them. In this week's edition of the podcast, Lingle shares the lessons he learned about starting a business, building an elite team, and embracing the quintessential entrepreneurial challenge of pivoting multiple times. He also lays out the strategy behind High School Hustle and plans for a national expansion. Here's our conversation. It's my pleasure to welcome to the podcast Scott Lingle, who, among other entrepreneurial pursuits, is the co-founder of Indianapolis-based Remodel Health and Indianapolis-based High School Hustle, which helps students create and build businesses. Thanks for making the time to come to the studio today.
Thank you, Mason. Pleasure to be here.
So this is one of these podcast episodes where, in order to tell you about the main subject of the podcast, we need to tell you another story first. And that story is Scott Lingle, who's sitting right to the right of me. Where did you grow up?
Born and raised here in Indianapolis.
Right on. And you just told me a second ago you were Lawrence
North.
Lawrence North. Okay, great.
Wildcat.
What did your parents do?
Entrepreneurs. Actually, my dad worked for the Star News, took a buyout. He was a printer. And about age probably 40, took a buyout, became a real estate broker, him and my mom. But like all throughout growing up, they would flip everything, you name it. I lived in 20 houses growing up. They would buy a house, fix it up. We'd live in it, and then they'd flip it. But they flipped everything. So they'd go to garage sales and buy bikes and motorbikes and fix them up a little bit. And back in the day, there was the trader paper. I don't know if you remember the trader paper. Sure. And they were constantly buying things and flipping things. And I learned a lot about hustle and entrepreneurship by watching them.
Did you learn a lot about home renovation?
Yeah, home renovation, a little bit of everything. Fixing bikes, fix anything, fix and flip.
So a lot of people, when they're young, initially say, well, I'm just going to do what my parents do. What would you have said your parents do when you were, say, like 10 years old?
Very creative with just scrappy entrepreneurship, fixing and flipping just about anything, but then landed in real estate. That was their core, knowledge and skills, real estate.
And I'm sorry, you said they're real estate brokers?
They were brokers.
Okay, so they would help people buy and sell houses.
Yeah, and they moved around. They were with like Graves and Tucker. I think they ended up at Remax, so they bounced around.
Where do you think that came from for them?
They neither one went to college, and yet they were big get out of debt people. So kind of today it's like Dave Ramsey. Back in the day, I forget the guy's name. Larry Burkett was this guy. It was kind of like the Dave Ramsey of that era. And they read his books early on, and their mission was, we got to get out of debt. And so it was whatever it takes to buy stuff, flip stuff, And they just kept leveling up. So it was like, I don't even know, like first it was bikes and then it was motorbikes and then mopeds. And finally they graduated into houses. And you see that a lot with entrepreneurs. Like there's an arbitrage with everything. And the more you can kind of buy things, maybe clean them up, fix them up, and then resell them, and just kept leveling up. And they got into houses and they kind of stayed in that lane. But I think it was just this drive to want to get out of debt and be debt free. And they got there pretty early.
What was your first side hustle? And it could be just as easy as like setting up a lemonade stand, or like a lot of people who are on the podcast, they have like a lawn business.
Yep. Mine were a combination of lawn mowing pretty early and paper routes. So I did a paper route with Star News. And what was cool about that, I did the morning route. So I had to get up super early.
Yeah, the Star route, yeah.
And a lot of work, but they would incentivize you to go knock on doors and get new people to start. And in my district, they had a catalog. And that catalog had all kinds of like, you could get Walkmans back in the day. You could get bikes. You could get all kinds of things and so what would happen, we'd have contests. And at first, like my brother and I did a route together and we'd door knock together. And then we got courageous enough, we started competing. And he would go knock on doors and I'd knock on doors. And we won, I bet we won a dozen things out of that catalog. Boom boxes, bikes, you name it, TVs. But that's where I really kind of fell in love with entrepreneurship way back. I bet that was like 8th grade.
That's amazing because I had the exact same story. I delivered the news for 5 years.
In the afternoon.
But I hated the idea of like knocking on somebody's door.
Yeah, it sucks.
And over the course of like 5 years, the number of houses I delivered to diminished quite a bit. And which leads me to a question I was going to ask towards the end, but I'll ask now. Is it nature or nurture? I mean, are there people who just are constitutionally tilted towards entrepreneurism, or can anybody do it?
Yeah, I think it's a combination. I probably lean more toward nature. But watching my parents and seeing them get the reps in and learning that muscle memory, I don't know, I could be convinced either or. And my situation was kind of both. I feel like I was born to do this. But then I had a lot of, watching my parents and learning from their model.
Was there a point at which it just became apparent to you? I mean, this is what I'm going to be doing. I mean, I'm in high school now. I know I'm going to go into sales, or I know I'm going to be a service provider.
100% knew I was going to go into sales. I wanted to be in an environment where I had unlimited upside and paid on my performance. And sales gave me that. And I kind of knew deep down, like I'm born and wired to be an entrepreneur, but my path is really unique. Didn't become an entrepreneur until age 44.
Right.
So that's where it kind of goes crazy.
Yeah, and we'll get to that for sure. So where did you go to college?
Went to a small Christian college, Olivet Nazarene University. It's in Bourbonnais, Illinois. And I went there on a tennis scholarship. Grew up playing tennis.
Okay. Did you play tennis in high school as well? Wow, that's great. And you graduated with, it was a business degree. Remind me what it was.
I did. Business management.
Okay. And then pretty quickly, you can tell me the exact timing, you went into sales for United Healthcare, which I think at the time, at the very beginning, was probably Golden Rule.
Exactly right. The Rooney family, Golden Rule Insurance, great company, really well run. And about 10 years into my career, they got acquired by United Healthcare. And everybody was a little bit spooked about, big company acquiring the little company, but they didn't own a version of what we did at Golden Rule. And it ended up being nothing but upside. Like we grew like crazy. It was a real win-win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What did you like about sales?
Sales really, so I'm very money motivated, very, very driven by, competition coming from like the sports world. So I love the fact that in most sales environments, you got leaderboards, scoreboards, you can see your name rise to the top, and then you got like unlimited upside. So I loved both of those aspects of sales. And I love the fact that you can follow kind of the leader. You get into an environment and you say, okay, how do you do this? And you find out the guy that's on the top of the leaderboard. You kind of do what he does, model his example.
Before the tape was rolling here, we were talking about golf. And I mean, you like to take golf trips. I mean, like a lot of guys do with buddies. Are you super competitive? Or can you relax?
I can relax these days. That wasn't always true. And if you get me on a pickleball court, I'm way more competitive because that's more where my strengths are.
Yeah.
Golf, I'm pretty mediocre. I love to play. I got a huge bucket list of all these courses I want to knock out, but probably not near as competitive on the golf course as I am on either the tennis court or the pickleball court.
So you were at United Healthcare for about 20 years.
I was.
Until about, remind me here, about 2011?
Yeah, I think it was about 11.
Okay. And you finished as a VP?
VP of sales.
Okay.
Yep.
And then you went somewhere else. Why was that?
Yeah, went to a company, a small little startup, a buddy of mine that I knew just from the industry, and kind of gave me, like, I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but yet to jump off the cliff and go straight into entrepreneurship was kind of tough. It's so like taking a step into a small company. I think I joined that company when they were maybe around like 15 million. And took over as like chief sales officer. And we helped it grow from maybe 15 million to 50 million and took it public. We did an IPO and I was part of the roadshow, learned a ton. Can you imagine? I mean, like in a period of like 3 years, I got like, and I had already had a lot of knowledge from United Healthcare, but it really showed me the other side, not corporate America, but like small business, taking a company public, raising money. So I got like a giant lesson really quickly working for Health Insurance Innovations.
Okay, let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsor. This is the IBJ Podcast.
Taft, today's modern law firm, with more than 800 attorneys in 8 primary Midwest markets and the District of Columbia, we provide solutions to the business issues facing middle market and emerging companies alike. We do this through a highly collaborative and inclusive team approach. Taft, the modern law firm. To learn more, visit taftlaw.com.
All right, we're back with this week's edition of the IBJ Podcast in my interview with Scott Lingle about his career as an entrepreneur and his push to provide practical small business coaching to Indianapolis high school students. And then 2015, is that the leap?
Yeah.
Tell me, what was your thinking at the time?
Thinking at the time, I told my wife, I said, if I don't try this, I'm going to have a massive regret. At the time, I was like 44. Kind of prove to myself, both at United and Health Insurance Innovations, that I knew how to build winning teams. And pretty much like business is about building winning teams. And I just told my wife, I really think I can do this. And we had enough in the bank that I told her, hey, listen, for 1 year, we've got enough that I feel like I can make this leap. And let's see what happens. If it doesn't work out, my fallback was I left United on good terms. And I felt like in the sales world, it's all about social capital and these relationships. And I felt like, okay, if it doesn't work out, I'll either go back to United or I'll go to get a job at like Aetna, Cigna, Blue Cross Blue Shield. And I felt like I could step back into one of those roles and really not miss a beat. So it didn't feel that crazy. And so me and a business partner by the name of Justin Clements, he had been a sales guy on my team, both at United, and then I took him with me. And when I went over to Health Insurance Innovations, we started dreaming up what would it look like to start our own thing.
That's incredible. Well, so your wife was on board. I want to
semi.
So I was about to say.
I mean, you can imagine 44. My oldest was going off to college. You're never at a point in time at age 44 where you've got more expenses. It's like the peak of expenses. So she thought I was nuts, but she also had the confidence and supported me, even though she was a little reluctant.
How many kids do you have?
We have 4.
4. Yeah. Okay. All right. And you had 4 by the time you were in your mid-40s?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. That's blowing my mind. So, I mean, that is right about the time that people go, oh my goodness, I do not have nearly enough money saved for retirement.
Right.
Man, I need to dig in.
Right.
And then your mindset, at least partially, was the opposite. Like, I need to blast off.
I need to jump off a cliff.
I need to jump off a cliff. What gave you the confidence that was going to work?
I think both building winning teams at United Healthcare for 20 years and really winning. Like we built, like I kind of created a new channel of distribution when I was at United Healthcare. Golden Rule, they were kind of, it was almost like Walmart buying the local mom and pop, grocery store. And I came to them and said, hey, I got this new idea. And they said, yeah, go for it. You're a team of one. And we grew that into a really big company inside a company. So it kind of gave me like the courage, like, you know how to do this. And then I did it again when I went to Health Insurance Innovations, kind of built a team, grew it like crazy. And that just gave me confidence to go do my own thing.
Once you got into it, did you feel like, this feels right? I'm doing the right thing.
100%. Yeah. But not without a whole lot of, entrepreneurship is like nothing else. Like every day you wake up and you feel like you're in a knife fight and you're just trying to stay alive. And we probably had 4 or 5 near-death experiences.
Wow.
Where, I would come in, we'd have a small team of like 3 or 4. And it was like, hey, if we don't hit this sales goal by the end of the month, like lights out. We had probably 4 or 5 of those. Wow. So tough times and just a lot of curveballs. We're in an industry, health insurance, which is highly regulated. And there were times where, based on government laws, like we had to make massive pivots and like change our whole business model overnight. So, it, wasn't smooth sailing the whole way.
As a leader of a team, when you're in that situation where, something has to happen, I know how you're supposed to behave.
Yeah.
How did you find yourself behaving?
Yeah, I would say those were probably the most trying times of my life in the first probably 1 or 2 years of building Remodel Health. And I'm a pretty easygoing, like level-headed guy, but there were a lot of sleepless nights. And when you're in those situations, I'm sure I let emotions get the best of me at times. But, all in all, it worked out pretty darn good.
I literally was just editing a column for our paper this weekend about leadership and how you can keep your team from absorbing whatever anxiety you feel.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's a lot easier said than done.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. And, I'm a big believer in, I always try to find rooms where I'm the dumbest and the poorest, and I learn from mentors in a big, big way. And so I surrounded myself with a lot of mentors that were like 10 steps ahead of me. And every time I was in a pickle in one of these tough situations, I would go and get advice and usually try to do that before I reacted. So if we were in a tough jam or we had to make a massive pivot, go to one of my mentors and find out what kind of advice they had to share with me.
Mm-hmm. You talked a couple of times about building good teams. That is really your superpower. Tell folks what that you think that means.
Yeah. So Steve Jobs said something like, when he started Apple, he said a small team of A players can literally run circles around a bigger team of B's and C's. And I could not believe in that more. And what's tricky about it when you're starting a company is early days, you can only afford like B talent. You're hiring a bunch of kids right out of college that don't know what they're doing. What I figured out, again, learning from mentors, the quicker you can get to hiring that first A player, that in the way you've got an A player, every other employee you have on the bus at that time, we've had probably 10 employees when I got my first A player, you would have to literally tell them day by day what to do. And when an A player comes in, they've ran the playbook before and they say, okay, I've been there and I've done that. Here's what we're going to do. And then they just tell you what they need from you. Here are the resources I need to get my job done. And when that started happening, I'm like, oh my goodness, like this is a game changer.
That's interesting. So you're not waiting to hire until you find the A player. You're hiring, right, but you will recognize the A player when he or she arrives.
Right. And honestly, until you get to about maybe a $1-2 million company, you can't afford A players. Mm-hmm. You really can't. And then finally, you get to the point where you start finding them and you're like, I don't ever want to hire any Bs. And then my model was, I read a book early on called Built to Sell. And it's the idea that companies that get sold are companies that don't need you working there. Like you can leave for a month at a time and they don't miss you. And I really bought into that. And I started like really leveling up and hiring people way smarter than me and then just getting out of their way. And that's hard to do for most owners, honestly, because it's their baby and they got so much control. And for me, I think a superpower for me is one, finding A players, two, delegating. I love to delegate. I love to give all my work away.
That's great. Yeah, the argument for autonomy.
Right.
Yeah, where I mean, somebody like me would feel insecure about that because I want them to need me,
Yeah.
or or my board. I want my board to need me.
Yeah.
But you think you're better off if actually they can run it without you.
Honestly, that if I had any superpowers, it's that right there.
Yeah.
And that's hard, because a lot of times your identity is wrapped up in what you do. And to let go and kind of lose control of that is scary for a little bit. And always, first time you hand anything off, generally these people can do it about 60% as good as you, but then every week they get a little better. And I found that over time, these people can do it way better than me.
Mm-hmm. How do you keep those A players?
I would say usually incentive alignment. So with all of our key players at Remodel, we ended up giving them a piece of equity, and it worked out extremely well.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
We've gotten this far without even really explaining what Remodel Health, I think, was doing at the beginning. And then, as you said, you went through a few pivots.
Yeah. So the idea that Justin and I came up with, if you remember back in the day, President Obama created Obamacare, which is now the Affordable Care Act. And what Justin and I, what we knew working at Golden Rule, and it became United Healthcare, was the individual health market. And we recognized that what was emerging is the products on the ACA market, the Affordable Care Act market, were becoming more affordable and a lot more choices than even the group market. And that over time, we had this notion that just like a good analogy would be back in the day, everybody had pension plans. And over time, the model shifted and it went to 401ks. So the employer said, okay, instead of us picking your retirement plan for you, we're gonna fund it. We're gonna help you fund it, but you can pick whatever investment you like. We believe wholeheartedly, we still do to this very day, same trend is gonna happen with health insurance. Your employer doesn't buy your car insurance or your homeowner's insurance. Why should they mess with your health insurance? Now, we think they should help you fund it. But now that the ACA market gets stronger and stronger every year, it just makes a ton of sense to say, hey, let's set it up so that we help you fund it, but then you go pick whatever plan you want. And that effectively is what Remodel did at the beginning. And then Trump came along and passed a law called the Individual Coverage HRA. It's called ICRA, kind of a weird name. And in the last 2 or 3 years, we pivoted into that new law, and we already kind of were doing it kind of indirectly in our own weird way. And when that law passed, it put us in the top of the front of the pack. There's probably 30 or 40 competitors, and now all of a sudden we're the number one player in that lane, and it's got a ton of tailwinds.
Who hires you? The company?
We work with brokers. So in the insurance world, you have brokers, and then you have employers. And we have a model where we do a little bit of both. We're at now probably 95% brokers bring us in as the solution for their employers that are their clients, if that makes sense.
Yeah, got it.
Yeah.
So let's say that you were working with a broker for the IBJ, and I'm 57-year-old guy. I've got specific needs. Will you help me figure out what's best for me?
100%. So what's going on right now? Moving to this new product or this new solution called ICRA, Individual Coverage HRA, it can almost always save you a lot of money, both you and your employer. The tricky part is change management. So there's a lot of change going from, your employer used to just pick the plan for you. Sometimes there's a good one, sometimes not. Sometimes it included your doctor in the network, sometimes not. The new model is the work's on you. And so what we've created is a software platform that makes that change management easy. And then we combine it with a lot of employee support from our team, kind of tech-enabled services. And our model is we're trying to be kind of the high-priced, high service, high touch. So we're like the Mercedes in the industry on purpose because we feel like the number one thing holding people back from moving to ICRA is not price. Price wins almost every time. It's service. We're trying to be the high service, high touch product.
So when did you step down from day-to-day operations? Because you were the CEO.
CEO for probably only about 3-4 years. We actually, for a period of time, we had an outsourced CFO, fractional CFO, guy by the name of Austin Lehman. Austin had been a CPA running his own CPA practice, and he was doing fractional CFO work. And we ended up hiring him. What was unique about Austin is he's a numbers guy that also knows how to sell. Great communicator, great with numbers, unique combination. You don't see that often. And he actually started becoming a broker. Not only was he doing fractional CFO work, but he built out a team where they were actually brokering our product, and they became our number one distributor. And so what ended up happening, Brotherhood Mutual, an insurance company out of Fort Wayne, Indiana, and they do property and casualty insurance for churches. They found out about us, and they made an investment into Remodel Health, a $4 million investment. And at that point in time, we went from almost like month to month, I didn't know if this company was going to make it, to all of a sudden, I knew we were going to make it. That gave us the gas we needed to take this thing, as far as we could take it. And at that point in time, when they made that investment, I decided to step out of day to day and let Austin Lehman take over as CEO. And he's done a phenomenal job, 10 times better than I could. I think I'm good at starting things, and I'm not good once they get out of the gate and the flywheel spinning.
Mm-hmm.
And Austin's kind of guy that can make that flywheel go a whole lot faster than I can.
Right on. So what year was that?
That's a good question. We're going to have to go back, and I'm going to have to get some notes for you. I think that was, if we started this thing in 2015, 2018.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Pretty fast.
Pretty fast.
Did you stay on for any length of time beyond just being a board member?
Chairman of the board. I've mainly been chairman of the board for this company's been around 10 years, about 7 years I've been chairman of the board.
You still are chairman of the board?
No. So we got acquired back in December, and we no longer have control. A private equity company by the name of Oak Capital, they now hold the chairman seat. I'm a board member.
Okay. So somewhere in there, was there an exit where you were able to cash out some or all of your equity? Back
in December of 24, just recently, cashed in 60% of my chips. So I'm still in the game in a big way.
Yeah.
I still believe in it. Obviously, I wouldn't have rolled 40 if I didn't believe it. Yeah.
But I mean, certainly you have enough now that you can be an investor in other companies. You don't have to work every day. 100%. You can follow your passions and you're fine.
Yeah. It's a good stage of life.
That's a pretty good stage of life.
Yeah.
So then what was the seed that germinated and turned into High School Hustle?
Good question. So, it originally started with a phone call from Jay Height. Do you know that name? Jay Height runs a nonprofit in town called Shepherd Community, and they are on the Near East Side. They exist to break the cycle of poverty. And believe it or not, our church 30 years ago, maybe longer, launched that ministry. So I've had ties to Shepherd Community for a long, long time. They mainly help students by education. Kids that normally wouldn't have a shot at going to college, they pour in with mentoring, tutoring, and they help these kids go to college. He called me one day and said, hey, not every kid's wired to go to college. Some need to be going into trades, and some need to go straight into entrepreneurship. And he said, would you help me build that path? And year one, all it looked like is I partnered with Shepherd Community and another nonprofit called Elevate Indy. And they're in that same Near East Side. They work with tech kids, Purdue Poly kids. And year one, what High School Hustle looked like, we got students fed to us from those two nonprofits. I think we had 12 to 15 kids. And our goal was, can we help a kid build their first business, their first hustle, and get it to $500? And out of the
$500 in sales.
$500 in sales. And out of those first 15 kids, 10 of them hit the goal. Collectively, they made $50,000. We had one kid that made $25,000 over the summer doing pressure washing.
That was the very first
year.
First cohort.
Yeah. It kind of proved out, I'm an entrepreneur, and so I'm good at starting things. And that was I call it MVP, minimum viable product. Can this thing actually get legs? And year one, we kind of proved out like, yeah, it can get legs. And then I had a buddy of mine, Peter Servas, also entrepreneur, huge exit, sold actually a SaaS company to Ford Motor Company. And he was at a stage in life where this happens a lot to entrepreneurs that have exits, and especially early like him, like he's in his 30s still, where, he had no meaning and purpose in life. And even though he kind of exceeded all his dreams and goals, there's only, like it happened for me too, there's only so much like travel and golf and pickleball you play until you just get bored out of your mind. And so I think, we're created to have purpose. And he came along and I said, hey, come visit what we're doing over here at High School Hustle. And he came in and he really was the one that turned on the vision. It said, dude, what are you doing? Have you ever done anything without a partner? And the answer is no, I haven't. He's like, second question, have you ever done anything small? And I'm like, no, I really haven't. And he said, why don't we partner up and why don't we take this thing 10X? And here we are year two and probably going to like 30X it. So it's been incredible. It's been a fun ride.
You're in year two right now.
Year two right now.
Okay. Throw me some numbers. How do we measure the growth?
Yeah. So 17 high schools have turned on High School Hustle. Something like 1,500 kids have registered to be in the program. And any given week, we're in front of 1,000 kids teaching them how to build their first hustle.
And this is just the second year?
Second year. Now, and one employee. So we hired Hunter Beal, total stud. Kid's got all the energy in the world. He was an Orr Fellow. And I actually funny story, I went to Stephen Emch, who's the leader of Orr. And I said, Stephen, I want to hack the system here. Who's the most entrepreneurial, ambitious, high energy kid that's ever been through Orr? And he said, probably Hunter Beal. I said, all right, that's who I'm hiring. Year one, we made him a mentor, and he ended up being like the best mentor I had. In fact, the kid, David Arellano, that made $25,000 pressure washing, it was because Hunter made a connection, David, to a guy named Kenny Hall that owns Live Indy, which is property management, mainly for like Airbnbs. The guy has 300 doors in his property management wheelhouse. And that connection, he basically told David Arellano, I want you to do all 300 gutter cleaning jobs this summer. And that one connection made that kid like 20 grand. So, and Hunter was responsible for all that. So when we got ready, Peter and I said, okay, who are we going to hire? It was a no-brainer. We hired Hunter.
So I'm a high school student. I'm interested in entrepreneurism. I show up on day one and you say, hey, you're going to build a business. Yep. And I'm like, where am I going to get the money?
Yep. We will fund you up to $500.
Okay.
And the way that goes about, so we have 6 meetings that start in January and they run through the end of the school year, end of May. We just need to get in front of a kid 6 times. We have 2 playbooks. So we have one playbook that's $0 to $400 in sales. Kid that's never, ever thought about entrepreneurship, never thought about doing any kind of high school hustle. And that playbook's going to take them step by step, $0 to $400 in sales. We have another playbook because we recognized some of these kids step in and they've already got their hustle to like $500. That playbook is like, how do you go from 400 to hopefully 10,000 or more? And it's mainly a lot about demand generation, lead generation, a lot of cheap marketing ideas. And the real thing that we got creative on to fill the seats is we created what's called the 100K Award. And the 100K Award is if a kid comes into the program and builds one business that gets to at least $400 in sales, they qualify. And they qualify for the summer competition, which is the top 10 kids that go the furthest in sales get $10,000 each. And that will run this summer and can't wait to see what happens there.
So this summer will be the first time.
First time.
Okay. So I just want to make sure I get this right. So spring 2024 was just the one cohort.
Yep.
Spring 2025, you have 17 high schools,
yep.
1,000 kids.
Yep.
And I did a little bit of back of the napkin. I think something like 80 or 90 mentors.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for the summer competition, do I have to create a new business?
No.
Okay.
We want you, all you're required to do is create one hustle that gets to at least $400. But we know in entrepreneurship, you learn everything by failing and pivoting. It's what we really encourage is more than one hustle. You don't have to, but we say, okay, if you're trying to be the ideal student and really win this competition, maybe the first month you go out and you try car detailing, and you decide, okay, made some good money there, but I didn't love it. Month 2 you try pressure washing, and see how well you like that, and then maybe you try lawn mowing. Like try whatever. And finally, you're going to find a lane that you feel like, okay, this is my sweet spot, and this is where I'm seeing the most demand in my little community. And then summer, after you've tested like 2 or 3 different hustles, go all in on that one that you feel like really works. Now, you don't have to do 2 or 3, but that's what we encourage.
So you've seen that. Instead of just somebody going, I'm going to spend the whole spring, trying to sell tie-dye t-shirts or whatever. Some people from month to month will change
switch
business.
It up. Not unlike like me and Peter. Like I did lawn mowing, I did paper routes, I flipped stuff just like my parents, like bikes and things like that, to find your wheelhouse. And same thing with entrepreneurship. Like in our business remodel, we pivoted, multiple times to find our real lane, and that's what we're trying to create those muscle memory in that fashion.
So where does the funding come from?
Funding. So the model is set up this way. Peter and I both have crazy good networks in Indy of a lot of business owners. And the way we kicked this off is we started at, the guys that were at High Alpha?
Oh, yeah.
Christian Anderson's a good buddy of ours. We hit up Christian. We said, okay, step 1 in all this is we got to create a role called the chairman level. And the chairman is nothing more than the funder. And these are like indie business titans. Think Christian Anderson, Peter Servas, a guy named Tad Miller. Anyway, a bunch of guys that we know. And we threw a big event at High Alpha. If you've ever been there, it's mind-blowing. Probably the best space in town, in my opinion.
Yeah, over at BottleWorks.
And we invited, I think we had over 100 business owners in the room. And me and Peter and Hunter did a Cast the Vision session. Phil Alt was actually a part of that too, another buddy of ours. And out of that group, we probably got 40 to 50 chairmen that were funders. And not only did they fund, but they help us open a new school. So you'll have a guy like Phil Alt, his kids go to Heritage Christian, and he said, okay, I'm going to fund Heritage Christian, and I'm going to help you get in that door and open that up. Another guy that helped us get into Cathedral, Carmel. So they do 2 things. One, they help us get in the door. They know contacts in that community, and they fund it. Second thing we had to do is go have a bunch of meetings to find what we call campus presidents. And a campus president's nothing more than a head mentor. And so what we look for there are 20s and 30-somethings that are building something cool, a business, and they're willing to step in and teach and mentor kids. But then what we do to give back to them, because we think we should add value to them, we have monthly, we have the chairman host a meeting at their office, and they share their how I built this story. And we invite all the mentors in, and the mentors want to learn from kind of the business titans. So we have a model that's like this ecosystem where everybody wins. We're not only giving back to the students, but we're letting the mentors get access to kind of these chairman business titans. And then what we're going to do every quarter, we're going to have a fun event. For example, Tad Miller's got a house down at Lake Lemon, and he's not only got boats and jet skis, but he's got 4-wheelers, and we'll invite the whole crew down there, as many that can come. And so it's really trying to foster this ecosystem that we believe in, that business, more than anything, is built on social capital. And it's kind of who you know as much as what you know. And we're fostering that environment in Indy. And it's working so far.
Let me make sure I got this right. So we have the chairman,
Yep.
primarily funding and access.
Yep.
There are presidents and mentors.
Yep. Campus presidents, which are just head mentors. Think head mentors. That's all they're doing. And then they help us recruit a team. Every high school needs about a team of 10 mentors. And keep in mind, all
these
those
are business owners. I mean, these are entrepreneurs themselves.
Trying to get business owners at all those levels because they know how to teach entrepreneurship because they're out there doing it.
Right. And everybody is volunteering and or
we have
giving money.
Yep. We have 1 employee. So we built this whole thing on 1 employee, which is kind of mind blowing.
The only person getting paid here
Yep.
is him.
Yep. 100 bill.
100 bill.
But that kid can work like 5 people. So
Right.
he's been a good hire.
So you are not getting paid
Not
for
a
any
dime.
part of this?
No. Peter and I
Pete,
have funded
not getting paid. You are
a
funding
good chunk of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, I mean, for you, it's very much a philanthropic pursuit.
Oh, for sure. For me, I feel like super blessed by the gift of entrepreneurship. And this is my give back. I want to create, I think the world needs more entrepreneurs that are out there finding problems and solving problems. Like that can only help Indy. And I also believe entrepreneurship is like the great equalizer. And what I mean by that, more than your IQ and your talent and your privilege, entrepreneurship rewards hustlers and gritty people that fail a lot and just keep getting back up and saying, oh, that didn't work. What can we try? They're experimenters.
Is there a particular kind of business or market sector that kids seem to gravitate towards?
Yeah. So definition of a hustle in our world, got to be able to buy all your supplies for $500 or less. Got to be able to watch maybe 5 YouTubes and figure out how to do the skill. And then you got to be able to start this weekend. So like businesses that are like, oh, we're going to create the next Facebook, like probably not going to fit in our box. But it's like scrappy, a lot of people are like, a lot of flippers these days. So we have shoe flippers. We have thrifters that go to Goodwill, find stuff. They see the arbitrage. Oh, this thing's $1 and I think I can get $10 for it. And that's like a skill that's going to serve them for life. Like I know a lot of buddies of mine that are doing real estate and they're nothing more than, flipping on a bigger level.
Yeah. I've got my buddy of mine in the newsroom, flips stuff on eBay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got a ton of flippers. Actually, most unique is a couch flipper.
You flip a couch.
Buys couches, finds them on like Facebook, some household mom that just wants it out of her house. Say, come pick it up for $100. And that kid will say, that thing's really worth $1,000 and recognize that and sees the arbitrage and goes and flips it. And it's a good little business model.
So you're a builder. You're good at building things, creating a building. Are you thinking about expansion?
Yeah. Funny enough, we want to go national with this next year.
Next spring?
Yeah, next year. So couple ideas that are on the roadmap there. One, we have a meeting coming up with DECA. Have you ever heard of DECA?
No.
I don't know what the initials stand for. I should, but they're in almost every high school in Indy. And they do more or less pitch competitions. And mostly like theory, hypothetical businesses. We think we're a great complement because most of what you do in school is not hands-on learning by doing. It's a lot of theory. It's a lot of, working on Excel and PowerPoints. We're learning by doing, 100% learning by doing. We feel like DEC is amazing and doing amazing work, but they're kind of missing maybe that piece of learning by doing, and we'd be a great complement. So that's one idea that we have to scale is kind of come alongside and partner with them. The other one that just hit my radar the other day, there's a podcast out there called My First Million. You've ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Huge traction. I don't know what their audience is, but it's really big. And a guy that was on there that is a founder of CB Insights that just had a massive exit. He's out of New York City. And he's created something called Formidable Fellowship. And they're kind of in the same lane we are. They give $1,000 grants to high school kids with hustles. And you basically just go on the site, you tell your story, you upload a video, and if they pick you, they give a free grant. There are no strings attached for $1,000. And they're doing this on a national basis. And they were on My First Million, and they highlighted the top 3 students. We're hoping to partner with them and take it national through that vehicle as well.
Okay. Have you been in touch with them yet?
We have. The guy, the day after he was on My First Million, we pinged him, we cold emailed him, and he responded in seconds. And we've got a meeting next week.
All right.
Cold email.
That's wild.
Yeah.
What do you find, what is the main kind of feedback that you're getting from the students?
I think the main thing that holds kids back is fear. Our number one value is faith over fear. And what we're trying to do is create these environments where, one, we tell them day one, pick a partner it kind of sucks, pressure washing every day or mowing lawns every day. And we encourage them to door knock and leave door hangers. And talk about hard. Door knocking is hard as crap. And so we say, hey, it's going to be way more fun if you got a buddy out there and you're door knocking together. But really create environments where we've got mentors pouring in, encouraging them, giving them a lot of good advice, and creating these fun environments where there's competition, there's money we give away. Almost every week we're handing out cash, and just create a fun environment where they can overcome that fear quickly.
Is there anything that you have learned about entrepreneurism from watching these students?
Yeah, I think just watching kids that come, like we're in all the IPS schools and
IPS high schools.
IPS high schools. Yeah. So watching these kids that come from nothing, that just have the grit and determination to get out there and do whatever it takes has been super inspiring. And that's what I love going to these meetings, just because I learn from the kids and inspired by the kids. I think the other thing that I learned from Peter that I thought would never, ever, ever work is he said, I think we need to go into lunches. And the administrators at every school said, you're nuts. Like, lunches are chaos. Kids are on their phones. And some of these schools, it's the only time they have be scrolling on their phone. So they're scrolling on their phone like crazy. It's loud. It's chaotic. And Peter said, I've got this idea where our call-out meeting, where we get the kids' attention and recruit them in, we need to do lunches. And so we decided to try it. And what we do is we go into a lunch, we either get a bullhorn or we get a mic, whatever they have available.
That's literally what I was envisioning.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Hunter will stand on top of a table. He found a briefcase that's got $100,000. It's fake, but it looks as real as could be. He stands up on that table and with all the energy in the world, screaming out to get their attention, he shows the stack of 100,000 in the briefcase, and it looks like totally real. And he says, this summer, we're giving $100K away. And here's how we're going to do it. And if you're interested, right here in the lunch line, we want you to come up and pitch us in 30 seconds on whatever idea you have and why you think you're going to win. And we're going to give away $300 bills. You would not believe every time we do that, we have a line of 50 to 100. We can't even get through all the kids. It works every single time. It kind of blew my mind.
I don't know if this was intentional, but the visual elements of that are super similar to what Mr. Beast does.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
as we know, everybody watches Mr. Beast.
Yeah. It totally worked. I thought there's no way.
Yeah.
So that was crazy.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else is on your bucket list?
Oh, I've got a ton of things on my bucket list. So we're building a house right now in Danville, Indiana. And Danville, Indiana is got a town square, kind of like Noblesville. And my oldest son now is in real estate, following my parents' lead. And he's doing residential, but his dream is to go into commercial. So him and I are going to team up and try some projects in Danville. We want to bring good food to Danville. And so that's on the radar. We're going to do some kind of commercial real estate project involving, we don't want to own restaurants, but we want to own real estate and attract restaurants.
Do you like having, all of these different modules in your life, different projects you're working on?
The more plates spinning, the better. I thrive on, I just like the pace of entrepreneurship and a lot going on. And sometimes that's good, sometimes that's bad. But I just love, I got a lot of energy still, a lot of gas in the tank, and love having a lot of bucket list things to chase after. All
right. Well, we're going to have to check up on High School Hustle in the next year and see what happens.
Yeah, love it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing the story.
Thank you, Mason. Yeah, appreciate it.
My thanks again to Scott Lingle. And folks, before you get on with the rest of your week, there are a few stories in this week's edition of IBJ I want to draw to your attention. First up, Daniel Lee reports on the progress made by Eli Lilly and Company in selling its blockbuster weight loss drug Zepbound directly to consumers. Daniel also has a front page story about educational nonprofit Crystal House International making its first major plans for global expansion since the death of its founder in 2020. And Daniel Bradley examines the surge of indoor golf facilities in the Indy area and how it relates to an upswing in popularity for the sport. And again, you can read these stories in the latest print edition of IBJ or online at ibj.com. I will say it is quite a bit easier to access all the latest local business news and all of IBJ's data on Central Indiana's business community and economy if you're a subscriber. We're running a promotion right now that gives you complete access for $1 per week for 3 months. Just to give you a sense of how valuable and original our content is, just go to ibj.com and click on the subscribe button. And thanks again for making time this week for the IBJ podcast. I'm Mason King. Hang in there, everybody. We'll be back again next week.